right about time to bring you up to speed what's happening globally and in Nigeria. We begin with climate crisis. Japan endures hottest July ever on record. Gershkovich, Whelan, Kurmashiva returned to US after swap. Australia finds serious failures in Israeli food attack. US claims Venezuela election won by opposition, and Trump's net worth down 900 million US dollars since Harris joined race. Beginning with climate crisis, the Japan Meteorological Agency said on Thursday Japan has experienced its hottest July ever recorded. Temperatures in the country were 2.16 degrees Celsius higher than average, the hottest since records started in 1898. The preceding record for July, set last year, saw temperatures rise 1.91 degrees Celsius above average. Temperatures rose above 40 degrees Celsius in 7 locations on some days, with the mercury logging 41.0 Celsius in Sano, Tochigi Prefecture on July 29th. 62 of the 153 observation posts across the country, including central Tokyo and Nagoya, set latest records. A high-pressure system over the Pacific and warm air from the south that covered northern regions had added to the rise in temperatures, Japan's meteorological agency said. It said that it expected higher than usual temperatures nationwide in August and advised the public to stay hydrated to reduce the risk of heat stroke. It also cautioned that Japan could see new records set in the future due to climate change. According to authorities, at least 59 people have died of heat stroke in Japan since April. The European Union's climate monitor last month reported that the planet had experienced its warmest day in modern history. Last week, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres called on countries to take action to tackle extreme heat that is increasingly tearing through economies, broadening inequalities, undermining the Sustainable Development Goals, and killing a lot of people. Evan Gershkovich, Wall Street Journal reporter, ex-US Marine Paul Whelan, and journalist Alsu Kurmashiva have arrived back in the United States after being freed as part of the major prisoner exchange with Russia since the Cold War. The White House said the US had negotiated the swap with Russia, Germany, and 3 other countries. The deal, deliberated in secrecy for over a year, involved 26 people, including 16 moving from Russia to West and 8 prisoners, along with 2 children in the other direction. Late on Thursday, the U.S. citizens' plane landed at Joint Base Andrews, Maryland, where they were greeted by cheers from family and friends who had gathered for their arrival, as well as U.S. President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. Earlier, Biden said he owed a particular debt of gratitude to German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, who made the politically difficult choice to release Vadim Krasinokov, a Russian serving a life sentence for the murder of an exiled dissident in Berlin. Harris welcomed the release after what she said was an appalling perversion of justice. The West secured the release of 16 people who had been imprisoned in Russia, including 5 Germans and 7 Russian political prisoners in a deal that Turkey assisted to mediate. Thursday's deal was the biggest in post-Soviet history and needed major consensus from other countries. A former prisoner exchange between Washington and Moscow took place in December 2022 when American basketball player Brittney Griner returned to the U.S. after 10 months in a Russian prison in exchange for Russian arms dealer Viktor Bout. In Russia, President Vladimir Putin was at Moscow airport to meet the 8 citizens returning home, greeting Krasikov with a handshake as he got off the plane. They had been convicted of spying, hacking, and murder outside Russia, but Putin said the group will be honored with state awards. Now, Australia has found an Israeli attack on a Gaza aid convoy in April was the result of serious failures, but was not intentional. 6 foreign aid workers and their Palestinian driver were killed in the air raid on the War Central Kitchen convoy. The dead included Australian Zomi Francom, as well as 3 Britons, a North American, and a Pole. A declassified report by former Australian Air Force Chief Mark Bingskin, which was released on Friday, discovered that the 3 vehicles in the WCK convoy were struck in relatively quick succession after Israeli forces tagged it as suspicious because some of the group's security team were armed and they mistakenly believed the convoy was being hijacked by Hamas fighters. The The strike was the result of a significant breakdown in situational awareness, said Bigskin, who traveled to Israel for his investigation. The killings drew broad condemnation from around the world and accusations that Israel had deliberately targeted the air workers, a claim it rejected. Founded by celebrity chef Jose Andres, US-based charity WCK provides food to areas ravaged by humanitarian crunch, natural disasters, and conflict. It suspended its operations following the attack, noting that it had coordinated the convoy's movements with the Israeli military and that its vehicles were clearly marked. Benjamin Netanyahu, Israeli Prime Minister, formally admitted that the military had hit the convoy but said it was not deliberate. The military described it as a grave mistake. Binskin said that on the information available to him, the strike on the WCK aid workers was not knowingly or deliberately directed against the force. Israel's probe into the attack had been timely, appropriate, and with some exceptions sufficient, he added. Foreign Minister Penny Wong, in a statement accompanying the report, said Australia will push for full accountability from those responsible, including criminal charges, if appropriate. On electoral matters, the United States has said it is clear that President Nicolas Maduro lost the popular vote in Venezuela's election last week, as a major opposition leader said she is hiding in fear of her life. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said in a statement, given the overwhelming evidence, it is clear to the United States and most importantly to the Venezuelan people that Edmundo Gonzalez Urrutia won the most votes in Venezuela's July 28th presidential election. The United States rejects Maduro's substantiated allegations against opposition leaders. Maduro and his representatives threat to arrest opposition leaders, including Edmundo Gonzalez and Maria Corina Machado, or an undemocratic attempt to repress political participation and retain power, Blinken added. Across Venezuela, protests erupted after the country's electoral body, which is stacked with regime allies, announced Maduro as the winner with 51% of the votes. The election was seen as the most consequential in years, with Venezuela's stalling democracy and hopes of recovering its crushed economy on the line. Several young opposition supporters say they will leave the country if Maduro was re-elected, pointing to the devastating collapse of Venezuela's economy and violent repression under his rule. George Rodriguez, National Assembly President, who is a member of Maduro's inner circle, called for the apprehension of opposition figure Machado and presidential candidate Edmundo Gonzalez on Tuesday. The country's public ministry later clarified that no arrest warrant had been issued for either opposition figure. An energized opposition movement, which overcame the divisions to form a coalition and coalesce around Gonzalez, enjoyed strong polling figures prior to the vote. It had been seen as the ruling establishment's toughest challenge in 25 years. Though Maduro had vowed free and fair elections, the process was marred with allegations of foul play, with opposition figures detained, their key leader Machado banned from running, opposition witnesses allegedly denied access to the centralized vote count, and overseas Venezuelans largely unable to cast ballots. The Carter Center, one of the few independent institutions permitted to monitor the vote, said on Tuesday that Venezuela's electoral process did not meet international standards of electoral integrity at any of its stages and violated numerous provisions of its own national laws. Venezuela's opposition and several Latin American leaders have refused to recognize Maduro's victory. The United States had until Thursday been among numerous countries that have called on Venezuelan electoral officials to publish detailed results from the election. Still sticking with electoral matters, but now in the United States, ex-President Donald Trump's social media fortune is dwindling. The value of Trump's stake in the corporate owner of Truth Social has plunged by $900 million since Vice President Kamala Harris joined the race for the White House on July 21st. Trump Media and Technology Group's share price has tumbled by around 23% since then, including another sharp decrease on Thursday amid a broader market sell-off. The value of Trump's dominant stake in the conservative social media company stood at just over $4 billion as of July 19th, the final trading day before President Joe Biden exited the race and endorsed Harris. It has since dropped to about $3.1 billion. The sell-off comes as national and battleground polls indicate a tight matchup between Trump and Harris. The stock has become a vehicle for Wall Street traders to bet on the prospect of Trump returning to the White House, as Truth Social could become the platform for presidential communication if Trump wins. Trump media's share price briefly popped in June following Biden's disastrous debate performance. The stock hiked again last month after Trump survived an assassination attempt in Pennsylvania. At the same time, Trump's Truth Social battled to gain traction in the social media world. According to Comscore data analyzed by the Right Team, in June, Truth Social's unique visitors tumbled by 38% year over year, marking the platform's third straight month of declines. Since going public in late March, Trump media's share price has experienced severe turbulence. Experts have said Trump media amounts to a meme stock trading on hype and momentum instead of fundamentals. Trump is the dominant figure in the company, owning 114.75 million shares, serving as its chairman and the most popular user on Truth Social. Trump's net worth is estimated at $5.9 billion by Bloomberg. Even after the recent sell-off, Trump media is still valued at $5.1 billion US dollars. Some experts have cautioned the company is drastically overvalued because it makes very little revenue and Truth Social remains a tiny player in social media. For context, Trump media's market value is still more than twice the $2.2 billion US dollars of JetBlue. That's despite the fact that JetBlue generated 2,300 times more revenue last year than Trump media's paltry $4.1 million US dollars. On more stories and on Israel-Gaza conflict, Israel conflict enters new phase after killings. This is coming from Hezbollah in Beirut's southern suburbs of Dahiya, the stronghold of Hezbollah. Huge crowd wearing black joined the funeral for Fuad Shakur, a senior commander of the powerful Lebanese militia and political movement, and the most high-profile member to have been assassinated by Israel during this present hostilities. They carried placards with Shakur's face, waved the yellow and green Hezbollah flag, and chanted some of the group's slogans, sometimes with their fists in the air. Shakur was behind a missile strike that killed 12 children and teenagers on a football field in the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights last Saturday, according to the Israeli military. Hezbollah has denied involvement, although it initially claimed an attack on a close-by military base, which raised the possibility that the missile missed its intended aim. Shakur was also known as Al-Hajj Mohsin, who was said to be a close advisor to Hassan Nasrallah, the influential and longtime Hezbollah leader. As people were assembled, Nasrallah gave a televised speech that was watched closely for any indication of Hezbollah's possible next moves. The conflict with Israel had entered a new phase, he said, speaking from a secret location as he always does for security reasons. The enemy must wait for the inevitable response because it had crossed red lines, he added, saying that the reaction would be proportionate to Israel's targeting of a civilian building. His tone seemed to show that the group remained uninterested in another major war with Israel, but there are concerns that they could be sliding into one. Shakur's killing on Tuesday, an attack that killed 6 other people, including 2 young siblings, renewed fears that a relatively contained conflict between Hezbollah and Israel could intensify into an all-out war with the potential to engulf the entire Middle East. Hezbollah says its campaign, which started a day after Hamas attacks on Israel on 7th October, is in support of Palestinians in Gaza. Most of the group's attacks and Israel's counterattacks have been limited to areas along the Lebanon-Israel border. Supported by Iran, Hezbollah has long been seen by Israel as a much more formidable foe than Hamas. The group has an increasingly sophisticated arsenal of weapons that includes attack drones and precision-guided missiles capable of striking deep inside Israel. In African shores, Guinea, Cameroon to appeal crimes against humanity verdict. On Thursday, lawyers for Guinea's former military leader Moussa Dadis Camara said he will appeal his conviction on Wednesday for crimes against humanity. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison on charges stemming from the 2009 massacre of over 150 people during a pro-democracy rally in the capital, Conakry. Demonstrators at the stadium were protesting against Camara's plans to run for president when soldiers opened fire on them. He had taken power in a coup the preceding year. Camara fled the country after surviving an assassination attempt not long after the massacre, but returned from exile in September 2022 to face justice, insisting that he was innocent. While in jail last year, Camara was released by gunmen who stormed the country's main prison, but was back in custody hours later as his lawyer said he had been kidnapped. Over 100 survivors and relatives of victims testified in the trial that began in November 2022. Just before sentencing, the court said the charges, which included murder, rape, torture, and kidnapping, had been reclassified to crimes against humanity. In a statement, Camara's lawyers said that during the nearly 2-year trial, he had not been heard or required to explain the elements constituting a crime against humanity. We take a short break, and when we come back, we'll bring you stories from Nigeria. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back now. Stories from Nigeria. Hashtag End Bad Governance protests turned violent in state. Yesterday, the hunger protest by Nigerians turned violent, with several killed, property burned, and businesses' activities grounded, while many highways were blocked. The hashtag End Bad Governance protest turned violent in major cities such as Kano, Gombe, Yobe, Borno, Niger, Kebbi, Abuja, and other towns majorly in the north. In some cases, the violence was triggered by the actions of security officials, while in others, the violence happened due to the actions of some overzealous protesters or counter-protesters. A stray bullet from a policeman near Yauri River killed a businessman in his shop in Yauri local government area of Kebbi State. According to Malam Umar Bakoyelwa, the protest became violent when protesters blocked the federal highway in Yauri town. Eyewitnesses said the protesters, mostly youths and the unemployed, outnumbered the security operatives and marched from the Rigasa area and the Abakwa end towards the Sir Kashim Ibrahim House, the official residence of the governor. In Niger State also, one person was killed, while the infiltration of Boko Haram fighters in the Borno State protest led to the killing of 4 people, raising the number of people killed as of the time of this report to 9. The Borno Police Command alleged that Boko Haram elements infiltrated protesters along Baga Road in Maiduguri, killing 4 persons while 34 others sustained various degrees of injuries. The police commissioner CP Yusuf Lawal said the police swiftly deployed the explosive ordnance device code EOD Base 13, which combed the scene and rendered the area around the filling station safe. Lawal said that the injured persons and corpses were evacuated to specialty hospital in Maiduguri. He also spoke on police declaration of a 24-hour curfew, saying many minors, mostly Almajiris between the ages of 9 to 15, took over the Maiduguri-Kano road, vandalizing public property. Also, curfews were imposed on Kano, Yobe, Katsina, and other major cities where violence broke out. In Kano, hoodlums attacked the Digital Industrial Park DIP of the Nigerian Communication Commission (NCC) and looted items including computers, furniture, solar panels, and air conditioner split units. The center in Kano is meant for the Northwest region and is due for commissioning on Wednesday, August 7th. In Abuja, the Minister of State for Youth Development, Ayodele Olawande, shouted down when he tried to address enraged hashtag End Bad Governance protesters at Eagle Square in Abuja. Still on the news, Boko Haram bomb explosion kills 19, injured 24. On Wednesday night, a bomb attack in Kawiri village in Konduga local government area of Borno State left 19 dead and 24 others injured, state officials say. The blast was suspected Boko Haram terrorists took place at a tea joint, a common evening gathering spot for the locals. The Director General of the State Emergency Management Agency, SEMA, Mohammed Barkindo, confirmed the sad incident. He said, and I quote, "Initially, we evacuated 20 injured persons to the State Specialist Hospital last night, and later this morning, 4 more were brought in with severe injuries. The police have since enforced a 24-hour curfew to stop further attacks." Nahum Daso, the police spokesperson, said, in consultation with heads of security in the state, "We find it expedient to declare a 24-hour curfew with immediate effect." And finally, on the news, still on hashtag and bad governance protest, Nigeria loses 500 billion naira in one day due to protests. Despite the strict warnings, threats and appeals by the federal government, now state government, security agencies and some organized private sector OPS groups on the planned nationwide protest to be postponed, numerous business activities were undoubtedly affected, as told by the organized hashtag and bad governance in Nigeria protesters in major cities across the country as they remain under lock and keys for fears of reprisal attackers by protesters. Investigation, according to report, revealed that several businesses did not open for operations as fears gripped business owners, mostly MSMEs, manufacturing companies, ICT centers, petrol stations, outlets, and other major players in the nation's economy. Economic experts, however, predicted that the country's economy may have lost over 500 billion naira in a single day to the first day protests in all key sectors of the economy for not being able to be open for businesses to the general public over fears of looting, lynching, and destruction of office complex. Report gathered that several key businesses have to employ the services of stern-looking security agencies to protect their operations during the hashtag and bad governance in Nigeria protest nationwide, with targets being warehouses, phone accessories and sales, pharmaceutical companies, banks, automobile shops, electronic shops, and others by hoodlums that disguised to join the protesters across major cities in the country. A recap of major stories says Japan endures hottest July ever on record. Gershkovich, Whelan, Karmashiva returned to U.S. after swap. Australia finds serious failures in Israeli food aid attack. U.S. claims Venezuela election won by opposition, and Trump's net worth down $900 million since Harris joined the race. And that's all on the news. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend ahead.